I get asked all the time by people, so how do I treat volunteers versus staff? How do I treat paid versus unpaid? I don't get good enough volunteers. I should probably interview them like they're staff. What's the difference between staff and volunteers? Here's the secret. There's no difference. Let me talk to you about both sides of that equation. There's no difference between paid and unpaid staff, and that's more true than ever before. People who come to me and say, I have a volunteer problem, I look at them and say, I had the same problem. I was horrible at recruiting volunteers, like the worst. Like I would stand up every August when it's almost time for people to go back to school and I'd say, we don't have enough nursery workers. And if you're older and think your time in the nursery is over, there's no retirement in the Bible. You need to volunteer. How lame is that? And by the way, wrong. There is retirement in the Bible. There's a book about it right here you can read. But there is no difference. If you have a volunteer problem, maybe you have a hiring problem with your volunteers. Are you putting your key volunteers through any kind of vetting, through any kind of goal setting, through any kind of expectation setting? Treat volunteers the same way you would treat hiring staff, and maybe you'll get better volunteers. Now, let's flip it around. Your staff is a volunteer staff. Boy, that's a hard thing to say. But it's true. If you haven't noticed, there's a great resignation going on. We called it in the end of 2020 before anybody else and said, this is coming, and it's happening in the business world, and you're saying, well, it hadn't happened in the church yet. Hello, the church is always slower than the business world to adopt new things. If you want to innovate in the church, just look at what's happening in business and do it a little sooner than the rest of the churches. Not hard. That's for free. That's extra. But with volunteer staff, people are leaving their jobs because they just don't want to do this anymore, because they just don't feel called to it anymore. If you aren't treating your staff with the same care that you're treating volunteers, you need to work on that side of the equation. Are you interviewing volunteers the same way you would staff? Are you treating your staff with the same thankfulness you treat volunteers? There is no difference, and that's not going to change for a long time. So what will you change so that your staff and your volunteers are both working and firing on all cylinders? Treat them the same. I bet things get better for you.